Where do you work, and what are the main responsibilities of your position?
Yeah, so I'm currently a PhD candidate at Rutgers University. I'm getting my PhD in toxicology. So basically, on a day, I've taken a bunch of classes and I've passed my qualifying exams. So on a day-to-day, basically, I'm just doing research in my lab to work towards getting my degree. So I have my own project. I work under my PI in my lab, or principal investigator. Not private investigator. And basically, I do research to try and complete that degree so that hopefully someday I can have a doctor in front of my name.
Awesome. And for those who do not know, what is toxicology specifically?
Yeah, so toxicology is essentially the study of poisons. So things that you can take in that can harm you. So it's kind of the opposite of pharmacology, where they look at like how drugs make you better. Toxicology is, if you take too much of that drug, how does it hurt you? Or if you take too much of something, how is that going to affect you? So it's very much a yin and yang balance between toxicology and pharmacology.
Got it. And how did you become interested in this field?
Yeah, so I have always really wanted to be a scientist ever since, I think, fourth grade. I really wanted to be a biologist come like seventh grade. I knew I really liked the life sciences. So I obviously went to college for biology at NAS. But when I got there, my advisor, it was like her first or second year, Dr. Stephanie Samuel, and she had just started the toxicology program. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And she's like, oh, you should just get a minor in toxicology. It's only like 2 extra classes. Why not just go for it? So I did, and I really liked it. So then I made it a double major. And then I got a summer internship doing ecotoxicology, so like toxins in the environment, right before my senior year. And at that point, I realized I liked toxicology enough to want to pursue it and continue my higher education in that field.
That's great. And now look where you are. What is a typical day or week like for you on the job or as a student?
Yeah, so it was a little different when I first started. So when I first started graduate school, I had not a lot of classes, maybe like 2 or 3 classes a semester. So I spent a lot of time studying, but I also had to balance my workload. So I also was rotating in different labs to see which one fit me best. And as I progressed on, I started studying less, doing more things in the lab. And now that I'm past my qualifying exams, I don't have to take classes anymore. I do take classes because I like to learn. But usually my day-to-day, I come into lab and I'm analyzing data or I'm running experiments. It all depends on the day. What I'm actually doing. Sometimes I'm taking care of animals. Sometimes I'm running different assays and experiments. And sometimes I'm at my computer just reading papers to try and come up with what I want to do next. So it can be very variable.
Sounds super exciting. And what do you like most about your current position?
So I very much enjoy being a more senior graduate student now. I feel like I have more of a grasp on what I'm doing and where I stand in the lab. And I enjoy the fact that I can use my knowledge to mentor other students that are coming through to help make their graduate experience a little bit easier. It's always a little hard, but just knowing that I have knowledge that I would have liked to have had when I first came into the lab, I think has been one of my favorite parts, is sharing that. And then even to people who aren't in my lab, just sharing my general experience, like maybe don't stress out as much about that test because it's not the end of the world sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I've been enjoying kind of taking on more of a leadership role in my program.
And what is your proudest moment that you've had so far?
My proudest moment in grad school probably is getting my paper accepted into a peer-reviewed journal. So for my PhD, the goal is to get my work published so that other scientists all across the world can use that and come up with their own ideas based on my research. So I think it was October, my paper was published in Toxicology and Applied Pharmacology. Sounds like super interesting journal, but and I was so excited because it's like seeing all of your hard work kind of come to fruition in just one place. You're like, oh, how could this possibly be like 2 years of work? But it's just exciting to see it all come together and other scientists approve of it and want other people to see it and to be a contributing member to the scientific community.
Yeah, I believe it. Congratulations.
Thanks.
What are some challenges that you face day to day?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest challenges that I face now is that I am still in school. I'm 26, and a lot of the people who graduated with me all have jobs, or they're buying homes, or they're getting married and starting families. I know I'm still young, but that seems to be where everybody's going.
Yeah.
And I'm still in school. So sometimes you can feel like, oh, maybe I'm not moving fast enough. Maybe I'm not progressing forward fast enough. And I have that conversation with my boss all the time. And he quickly reminds me that I am 26 and do not need to do any of those things right now. But on a more like surface level, I guess, I struggle sometimes with coming up with like the next step in my research. I'm getting towards the end, so now I have to do a lot more independent thinking, as opposed to someone being like, here's this project, go crazy. So I have to come up with my own ideas, and that can sometimes be a little bit daunting because you're like, oh, what if my idea is not good enough? What if the greater world doesn't think that this is a stupid idea or something like that?
Sure. Yeah.
So like gaining that confidence in my field, it's been kind of challenging, but we're getting there slowly but surely.
Are there any important projects that you are currently or recently have worked on?
Yeah, so I am currently working on a project involving pulmonary fibrosis in a chronic model, so long term. So people with pulmonary fibrosis, they basically have scar tissue in their lungs, and it can be caused from a multitude of different things. So breathing in asbestos is a common one that people know about. Breathing in dust, breathing in a lot of environmental toxins, but you can also get it from taking your chemotherapeutics, and you can get it from having rheumatoid arthritis, and you can get it from after pneumonia. Sometimes people develop this, and after COVID, sometimes people could develop this. So basically my research is trying to stop that scarring from happening. So I have a new compound that I give to try and stop that process from occurring in mice. And so far things have been promising. I've already looked at it in acute models, so like 7 days of injury with my compound to try and make inflammation less. So those have been pretty exciting for me. I've also gotten to work a little bit on a COVID vaccine. So I've been doing a little bit with some analysis of some data for that with a lab in the University of Pennsylvania. So I've gotten to do a lot of collaborations lately.
Amazing work. what you have done in regards to COVID. You talked about it a little bit. And how does your position align with the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, so I I have been following COVID pretty closely since it started. Um, Being in a lung toxicity lab, I wasn't sure it was going to be this extensive, and it turns out it definitely is. Um, so basically, I kind of have a general idea of what's going on with COVID because I understand the lung immune system, and nobody really actually knows what's going on. Just like when people put information out there, I've been pretty good at deciphering it.
Yeah,
Um, but my lab has gotten pretty heavily involved, which has been nice because that means I was able to come in to the lab during all of this stay at home orders where other people may not have been able to, which so I've been very privileged and lucky to be able to do that. But people in my lab have been working with COVID patient ventilators and looking at the cells that are in those ventilators. And I like I said before, I've gotten to look at a little bit with the vaccine stuff. And I myself have been looking at lung injury for so long that it all kind of ties in. Maybe someday my research will help people who suffered with COVID if they start developing interstitial lung diseases and pulmonary fibrosis. That would be awesome. Hopefully they don't develop those things, but if they do, hopefully.
well, you're there if they do. Your research
Yeah.
is there, which is awesome.
And I've also been trying to be a communicator of science to other people who might not necessarily be scientists. So I've been on the TweetCap, which is a podcast run by another NAS alum. And I am an Eagleton Science Policy, not a Eagleton Science Policy Fellow. I'm an Eagleton Fellow, and I was an ASPET Science Policy Fellow. And through those two roles, I have learned a lot about communicating science. I wrote an op-ed for my local paper about how we can keep some of the changes we've made during COVID to prevent the next pandemic. And I've gotten to talk with my colleagues about the whole coronavirus and what we can do to try and keep ourselves safe. And that's been a really cool thing for me.
That's awesome. I mean, we appreciate so much how you are giving your message to the Nazareth community and how you're just spreading the word. So that's really great. So have you gotten a vaccine?
I'm not in the correct group to get the vaccine in New Jersey yet. I get very jealous of all my New York friends who seem to be getting the vaccine way faster than me, but I will get it as soon as New Jersey says that there are vaccines for me to take. I wouldn't want to jump in line because I know there are a lot of people who need it a lot more than I do, but I'm definitely itching to get the vaccine.
Me too. And do you have a preference of a type of vaccine you would want to receive?
I don't have a preference. I think I would take any of them if they were offered to me. I was joking with my mom and I was like, if a doctor came up to me on the street and was like, would you like this vaccine? I'd be like, here, sure. Which is totally a joke. Don't take drugs from people off the street. But I think it would be cool to get one of the Pfizer Moderna vaccines because they're RNA vaccines and we haven't had one like that. So it would just be cool to be like, say that I got that one. But the J&J vaccine also is a single dose. So there's also benefits to that. But I mean, any vaccine at this point would be wonderful to not have to worry as much.
Yes. And can you explain a little bit how the vaccines work to your knowledge?
Yeah. So I know a lot more about the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. So that vaccine is an RNA vaccine, and RNA is basically in all of our cells, and it's how we make proteins in our cells. And you need proteins in your cells to do all the many things that your cells do. So our cells they're not the smartest. And when we have this RNA, when we inject it in the vaccine, it's carried in these little vesicles to your cells, and your cells see it and they're like, oh, what is this? It's RNA. We better just make copies of this, and we better translate it into proteins. And the RNA that's in the vaccine is actually for the spike protein on the coronavirus. So the spike protein doesn't hurt us. It just is a part of the virus that kind of tells it where to go and what to do once it's in our body. So when our cell makes this protein and sticks it on the outside of its cell membrane, your immune cells are like, guys, what is happening here? What is this thing? And they don't recognize it, and they're like, we need to get rid of this immediately. So they take care of it, and then they tell your memory cells, hey guys, listen, we just saw this. If we see it again, we need to just make sure we get rid of it. So your cell can launch that immune response without it being a dire situation. So you're not in panic mode. You get rid of the couple that you see here and there. It's not hurting you. But then the next time when the actual virus comes and it is trying to hurt you, your immune cells are equipped to deal with that. They can get rid of it more efficiently. They don't have to freak out. So that's how, in essence, that RNA vaccine works. I don't know as much about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, though.
That was great. I love your description.
Thank you.
And what is your message, or do you have a message for the NAS community facing the coronavirus and what they can do in their everyday lives?
Yeah, I know that it has to be tough. I mean, even at Rutgers, it's tough. There's nobody on campus here. I mean, it's amazing that you guys have gotten to go back to campus, even in the limited capacity. And I would say, just, you got to stick through it, because it sucks right now and it's hard to do online classes. I've found it very hard to do online classes too. And you just, once you get through it and you get to that normal NAS environment, and I'm sure you guys have had so much stuff to try and make it as normal as possible. But once you can start like going to the quad and hanging out in big groups again, like having junior, senior picnic or freshman, sophomore picnics, like it's so worth it. So if you're safe right now and you're doing all the right things right now, the sooner that that's going to come, and the sooner that you can be a big community again and not have to do everything so together but apart. And that's just be safe for now.
What skills have you gained from your education at Nazareth that has prepared you for your current role?
Yeah. So NAS definitely made me a more independent human being, which is probably the biggest skill I think you can get from going to college. Is I learned what I needed to do to achieve what I wanted to achieve. So NAS helped me. Obviously, I had my core curriculum, and I had my major classes and my minor classes, but it was more than just going to class and, I mean, half the time just sucking in all the knowledge and regurgitating it on a test. It was the connections I made with faculty who helped me to apply to graduate school. It was my swim team who taught me about the power of being on a team and being able to rely on others in your group to help you move forward. And it was being in the Senate and realizing what a big contribution you can make on a larger community. So, I mean, those were all things that I hadn't really thought as much about in high school. I was a little bit more individual. So having that giant support system and learning to lean on other people and to help other people move up with you was one of the greatest things I think I learned from NAS.
Yeah. So our last question is, what advice would you give to a current student at Nazareth College?
Ooh, current is so hard.
Yeah.
I would say that to be open to everything. I don't know a single person who I went into Nazareth who came out doing the exact same thing that they went in with. I went in, I was like, oh, I'm just going to do biology and the honors program, and that's it. And I came out with 2 majors and 5 minors, which sounds like a lot, but
It sounds crazy.
but I know, and they're very, very interconnected. But I like my roommates, one of them came in undecided and then like thought about biology and then ended up being political science and legal studies. Another one of my friends was music business and like ended up doing business and now is like doing communications. So it's everything. There's so many opportunities. So like, don't be afraid to change what you think is best, because what you think is best might change. So don't be like so set on something, and always try like the clubs, be in the Senate, be in student government, like just do as much as you can, because you might find something that is amazing and you just never thought of it before.